Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, breaking news. I'm talking to Andy Herman on a Victory Monday. Andy, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. If given the choice, I would choose Victory Monday over non-Victory Monday. So yeah, I'm super excited. We have a short week. Packers Lions Thursday. Bizarro things happen on Thursday, which is probably a good thing for this game. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped up.
All right, we'll talk about the Lions game in a bit. I'm trying not to think about the Lions game.
That's
I'm
fair.
trying to marinate in the victory here, Andrew, because I don't like the feel of this Thursday game. But that's neither here nor there. Let's start with the Chargers game. And, I mean, where else do you start but Jordan Love getting that 300-yard game, first one for the Packers quarterback since 2021.
Yep.
Obviously, I think I've already seen the pushback online. I'm sure you have as well. Well, the Chargers' defense is terrible. Their passing defense is awful. And it's like, that's true. But let's go back and look at some of the other games against also teams who have terrible passing defenses and compare the performance of the quarterback. And I don't think any objective observer would say anything other than, oh, yeah, this guy's starting to get it. Like, I'm not saying he's arrived. He's not perfect. But you look at his performances against, say, even like Denver or the Raiders, these teams where all week leading up to those games, we talked about, oh, this defense is awful and Packers should be able to take advantage. And it was, up and down at best. You look at his performance yesterday, that's a different quarterback than we were seeing a month ago.
No, I totally agree. Also, the Chargers' run defense is great. It didn't mean that Green Bay was able to run all over them. So,
gracious, right?
we'll get there too, I'm sure. But
yes.
No, I think you have to take what's in front of you. And we've made some really bad pass defenses look better than they have been in the past. So, regardless of who you play, you have to take advantage of it. That's not to say that they still have a Derwin James. Asante Samuel is a pretty darn good player. They've got some good players in that backfield. Obviously, Khalil Mack. I know Joey Bosa went out early, but just looking at what Love did, all you can do is kind of evaluate what with everything that he was given. I thought he really spun the ball really, really well in this game. There were a couple plays where he had pressure in his face and just decided to stick in there and really fire it downfield and still make extremely accurate passes. Would you like to have a couple of the layups, the big one to Musgrave down the field?
That's
sure.
The one, yeah.
Would you like the one to Dobbs maybe to be a little bit different, well down the field? Sure. But he still had the game-winning touchdown pass in this game. Some of the throws to Wicks and to Jaden Reed and to Romeo Dobbs. There's a play to Luke Musgrave, far hash. First, it's a
the left side, right?
10-yard out, and he's just, again, guy in his face, laser to the left, perfectly in front of Musgrave where you can go get the ball. When I was first watching this game live from the press box, I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? I like this game, but it kind of felt like some similar Jordan stuff where there were still some accuracy issues here and there. Man, when I went back and watched it, I liked this game a whole heck of a lot more. I thought it was his best game as a Packer, and there were so many positives to take away.
What's interesting, you mentioned the Musgrave play. There were a couple times. There's one in particular where I think it's a 3rd and 10. And, Derwin James, who is not a schlub, that's a good player. And Musgrave does a phenomenal job of not only getting to the sticks, but working open and giving Jordan a path to lay the ball out in front of him. Like, there were throws like that where in the past, especially over the course of that losing streak, where you could tell he was really struggling to put the ball where he wanted to. But, man, with pressure in his face often, yeah, I thought the accuracy looked improved. Now, again, there are certainly always going to be throws. And that's the thing. Like, every quarterback does that in a game.
I know.
Like, there are throws that, Patrick Mahomes wants back, or, Josh Allen wants back, certainly Josh Allen. But, there's no doubt that from where we were at the beginning of the season, the Packers as an offense in general, but especially Jordan Love, like, I don't see how you can look at this team and not see progress. It's laid bare every week in the past kind of 3 weeks, to my eyes.
I think so too. And the rhythm and timing with some of the receivers and tight ends, you can tell is just developing. And where it was a lot harder earlier in the season, you can just tell there's a better pacing, a timing. Jordan Love, having an expectation of where they're going to be. Still, again, a couple here and there where the timing was just a tiny bit off. But on the whole, again, if you're looking at beginning of the season up until now, what have we said before the season, beginning of the season? All we wanted to see was progress through the course of the year. And we're seeing that come to fruition. We're seeing some of these young receivers really step up and come into their own right in front of our eyes. And I don't know how you can be anything but excited for that moving forward.
Well, probably because you're watching the offensive line try to run block. I would think that would maybe dampen some of your enthusiasm.
Okay, hold on. I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm usually not the one to interrupt, but I want to interrupt you on something.
Go ahead.
But I just want to transition that from talking about what Jordan has done until the bad offense. This quarterback in his first year as a starter has not had any substantial running game the entire season. And there have been a couple plays here and there where you get the Jaden Reed things and they kind of
Right.
manufacture something every now and again. That's not a sustainable running game where the defense is afraid of you. So just imagine
If he gets a running game.
if he gets a running game that you actually have a play action you can build off of and a quarterback that isn't relied upon for so much. In his first year, he as a starter, he has no running game, and these are some of the things that he's doing. I'm so impressed by that. But yes, running game not great.
I mean, not great at all. I mean, you mentioned Jaden Reed, and he was their leading rusher yesterday on 3 carries.
Yep, and
I
one
mean,
of those was 2-yard loss.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing too. It's like AJ, God bless him. I thought he ran like
He was
a demon
really good.
yesterday. I mean, he was
Really good.
powerful, like lots of yards after contact. 14 carries, still only averaging 2.1 yards per carry. And now you've got Aaron Jones down, though it doesn't sound like it's long term, which is great. But
Yep.
and then you lose Wilson on the same drive. I know James Robinson now is back in the fold. But man, look, talk about a week that probably you're not going to get it going in Detroit. I don't expect something to magically happen. But I was really glad that you asked Matt post game regarding the shuffling of the offensive line in game. And it looked premeditated, right? That looked
Yeah.
like the plan. And kind of Matt reiterated that that was indeed the case. And on the one hand, I think I said before the game, Rasheed Walker had a promising outing in Pittsburgh. And the hope, I guess, is for him to build upon that. I don't know how you're building up a young man's confidence, though, when you're rotating in game. I thought Rasheed played well,
He did.
and I hope to see more of it on the road in Detroit. I don't know if that's going to be, the next step. But the other curious part is Sean Ryan getting 6 snaps, looking pretty decent again, and then promptly getting put back on the bench. Like,
Yeah.
I get it, but I don't get it. I'm really kind of struggling here.
I am all in right now on Rasheed Walker needs to just be the left tackle at this point. I get
Right.
there's still going to be hiccups. There's hiccups with Yash, and this is Yash, what, fourth-ish season in
Fourth
the
year,
league, and he's
yeah.
a free agent after this year. I'm willing to live with more with hiccups. And I thought in pass pro, Rasheed looked much, much better this week, looked much more calm, just confident. I see something that even if that something is just a long-term swing tackle and we're not talking long-term starter,
Well, which is fine,
yeah,
right? For an
exactly.
undrafted
A
dude who's
million
barely
percent. Yeah.
played, and now you're building him up to be that exactly is fine.
Absolutely. So I'm
I'm
all in
fine with
on
that.
just Rashid taking the left tackle spot from here. The right guard's interesting. So the what was it? A couple games ago where Ryan played a handful of
The
snaps, I
Rams
thought he
game,
looked
yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah.
This one, there's one play where it's really good, and I was really impressed by it. There's 2 other ones. One, it's really difficult to tell. I think he went the wrong way on the play. To be fair, it looks like about 8 people went the wrong way on the play. It just so
As
happens
often
that
happens in a Packers running play.
exactly that he may have been one of them. Really
Right.
tough to tell though. But there's another play where he got beat pretty easily on a play. I didn't think this was as clean from Sean. I am still, if there is going to be a rotation, by the way, John Runyon Jr. also did not play great
Oh,
in this
no, he
game.
did not.
So
No.
if there is going to be a rotation, that's the one where I want to see. Because again, if we're talking about a guy that's not under contract next year, that's John Runyon Jr. as well. He had all of last year to get this right. He had all of this year to get this right. And it's just still not right. And there are some really, really atrocious, like just quick losses off the line for John Runyon Jr. And again, this is year 4 for him. I'm willing to give a little bit more accident forgiveness to Sean Ryan at this point. And if you're going to
Exactly.
rotate something, let me see Sean Ryan, especially because I think he's a little bit more of a mauler in the run game. And man, oh man, do they need that right now.
I totally agree. And that's the thing. Like, if it wasn't, just no name tackles dusting Runyon, it'd be one thing. Like, if you're lining up out there against like Chris Jones or Aaron Donald and getting beat, like, yo, they get paid. They're the
You get it.
greats. Like, I understand. But man, he's getting dusted by, forgive me, nobodies. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a consistent thing. So that couple that with the fact that they can't get anything going on the run game, and Runyon is pretty easily tossed aside on a lot of these plays. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I hope we see more Ryan. I mean, maybe we do starting Thursday, short week, who knows? But yeah, that's something they got to figure out. And to your point, can you imagine Jordan Love with defenses having to worry about a run game?
I
Because
know.
right now they don't. They certainly don't have to commit numbers to it. I mean, that's
Nope.
the other thing. He's doing most of his work against 2 high safety looks, cover 3, things where the safeties and the backs are able to like just take as much space behind as possible because they know we don't need to help in run defense because they're not going to generate anything up front.
And the
That's
receivers
really
are doing work
frustrating.
against that too, right? The receivers are
Right.
doing work against those looks and
Yep.
against the defense that's not honoring the run. So again,
Absolutely.
there's from a passing game standpoint, there's a lot on defense, a lot on special teams, and a lot in the run game that still have a lot to be desired. But from a pass game
Right.
standpoint, young receivers, young tight ends, Jordan Love, that is coming along nicely.
Well, we only care about the passing game this day and age, so of course that's the exciting thing. It was funny actually. I was texting with Perry Goldstein after the game yesterday, and she said, "I really feel like we're starting to hit our stride." And I said, "Oh, I don't know about the defense." And she's like, "Well, obviously, when I mean our, I mean the passing game." It was just great. It was perfect. It was exactly what we're talking about. It's like they do feel that around the team, though. It does feel like this is a team that's figuring it out. But to your point, it's because it's Jordan Love, it's the
Yep.
offense. So much has been talked about the youth on that side of the ball, and it is great to see them progressing. But man, let's flip it over. Let's talk about the defense because I understand a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperience in the secondary, and boy, did that show up. But there are guys like Devondre Campbell, Jonathan Owens is in his what fifth year. Like these are guys who you're counting on to support those young guys, and they're missing tackles. I mean, Jonathan Owens is playing patty cake with a tight end.
Yep.
That was, I mean, that was so. I tried. It was weird because I was very happy the Packers won, but every time I thought about the defense, I just get deflated between Joe Barry and his tendencies, which is a whole other thing, but just the lack of intensity and consistency from veterans on the defense. It's just, that's to me that's frustrating, and that's putting it kindly.
I think so too. And if we want to give a little bit of like a, whatever, and I don't even really want to, I do think you go into this
Right.
game with your non-five preferred defensive backs going into the season. You've
And
got
I
no
know.
Stokes, no Alexander, no
Yeah.
Douglas, no Savage, no Ford. That's a tough ask of any defensive coordinator. At the same token, as you mentioned, there's got to be guys that step up, and Jonathan Owens is not a young, inexperienced guy. He got a ton of playing time in this game. Obviously, started the game some massive, massive mistakes in this game, including the big touchdown that he allowed after not only like it's not even like an attempted tackle at that
Oh,
point. It was just
yeah.
basically like
No, it
it
was
was like a two-hand
embarrassing,
touch.
is what it was.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. A million
embarrassing.
percent. I thought Campbell struggled in this one. I thought against a not great Chargers offensive line, I thought they really struggled to generate much push or pressure. In the running game, there were still those plays where you were letting them get to the outsides. There's the one Eckler play where he gets to the outside and bursts for, I don't know, was 30 plus yards. Those are the
Yeah,
sort of
third
things
and
that you
one.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes,
yeah,
exactly. Which has been an issue for this team, obviously. I think that Green Bay got bailed out on defense on numerous occasions by drops,
of
and give
course.
Kenny Clark credit for the forced fumble on Eckler. That was a big play, but it was also a inflicted wound where he fumbles it first, or there's a missed exchange first, or no, he slips first, excuse me,
Slips
then
first, yeah.
then steps back up, and then of course Kenny causes the fumble. This was one where even though they held him to a decent point total, it was a lot more fool's gold than what it looked, and I think it could have been a whole heck of a lot worse. Even the Carrington Valentine play at the end, where Quentin Johnston just drops the ball, which could have been at minimum getting them in field goal range. At worst, it could have maybe
Probably
gone
a
for a touchdown.
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, probably a game losing touchdown. And there was once again like they caused the turnover at the end, but Green Bay got the lead middle of the game and the defense gave it away. Green Bay got the lead back, and then they drove all the way down to the 2-yard line, and a plague on the Chargers house for not knowing what team you're going against. Because if you just hand it off for 4 plays in a row, there is there's a 100% chance you get in the end zone
Right.
against Green Bay. And they just got a little too cute with it. Credit Clark with the forced fumble, but a lot of plays left on the field. I will credit. I thought Carrington Valentine had a mostly okay game, other than the kind of biff at the end. And then Corey Ballantyne, for a guy that was a basically forgotten player. This is not your young up and coming rookie. If anything, if he got added to the active roster, it was supposed to be for special teams only.
Right.
For him to come in and start consistent games, and 99% of the game, you wouldn't even know that Corey Ballantyne was out there in a very good way.
Mm-hmm.
I've been mostly impressed with what he's been able to give them as just kind of a fill-in guy, and he's played pretty darn well, all things considered.
It's funny you mentioned Valentine. For the most part, I thought he held up well, but
Yeah.
it was fascinating to go back and watch because I didn't notice this live. But there were 2 or 3 instances where he's up playing press, and we've talked about like this summer he looked really good doing that, and
Yeah.
his physical brand of football I thought served him well in camp. But man, he whiffs at least
Couple times.
twice where he's
Yeah.
at the line of scrimmage and goes for the jam and literally punches air. I
Yep.
mean, welcome to the NFL, rookie. These guys have releases, and they've seen you on tape. We're halfway through the season now. You've played a bunch. Guys know what you're trying to do, and they've got a counter ready for you. So I thought
Yep.
in
Big
that
time.
way, it's probably a really good learning experience. Not to mention, as you stated, the play up the side there should have been probably the game-winning touchdown. I mean, you got to learn from that because
Big
teams.
time.
And it's funny to hear Matt praise Joe Barry for playing so much single high safety there at the end. It's like, yeah, that's what led to almost the losing touchdown. But all right, all right. I will say, I will give Barry props for his approach there at the end, simply because Herbert had killed them all afternoon with his legs, and he had Quay Walker spying on
Yep.
a number of those plays, not every single one, but on a lot of those plays at the end. And you could tell he wanted to move, but he couldn't because he saw Quay cutting off the angle every time he tried. That was a
Yep.
good adjustment by Joe.
Totally agreed. There were a couple of those too. They played almost like a 4-3 at a couple points in this game, where like four literal, I don't know what we want to call them, but four literal down linemen, interior defensive
Yes,
linemen,
sir.
basically
Yes,
on the
sir.
line within Kingsley and Igbare and Quay Walker on the edge. With actually, I think it might have been Campbell on the edge with Quay in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of some different looks that they gave that was exciting. We saw a little bit more of LVN with his hand in the dirt, which was an interesting sort of wrinkle. We saw one play of that a week ago, but they used
Mm-hmm.
more of it this week. So yeah, just a few things like that that I was intrigued by. That I was just happy to see them trying some different things.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch kind of LVN get a little bit more involved. I know I think he had one tackle in particular where he comes crashing down
Yep.
the backside to make the tackle for a minimal gain against the run. I mean, they need more of him. I understand like you're bringing him along and Rashawn and Preston are your lead dogs, but man, they got to start getting him on the field more because it's fun to watch kind of his explosiveness and his athleticism when he gets a moment like that, you see it pops off the screen. But
Yep.
he's just not getting a ton of opportunities, I don't think, yet to like really let it loose.
No, I think he's one of those players, almost like a Christian Watson on offense, where you don't just want to let them, kind of do the same thing that everyone else is doing. You kind of want to have a unique plan for them because their traits are so special. And where if you just kind of say like, "Hey, go be, a wide receiver and do all the like things that a nuanced wide receiver can do," or go be an edge player and do all the things a
Right.
nuanced edge player can do, I think you're not necessarily getting the most out of them. And maybe you need to have him like standing up in that Zadarius Smith role and kind of go like a 5-man rush and just kind
Waiting
of do
for it,
some
man.
stuff.
Waiting for it.
Just some,
Yes.
and again, who knows? Maybe that doesn't work, but just some different things where you let his athleticism shine, and that's what I'd like to just see. Maybe scheme me up as like a simpleton, like whatever we say, scheme up for everything, but just give us some schemed
Right.
up things for
Scheme him
both.
up, baby. I
Yeah,
love it. I
exactly.
like it. Speaking of scheming up, how do they scheme up this Thursday when they've got basically AJ Dillon and probably, you know, a bunch of cast-offs behind AJ. I know they've just signed James Robinson.
Yep.
They got the kid on the practice squad, but man, this is a tough ask for LaFleur. This is going to be if the Packers are going to pull this off, and I'm not holding my breath, but if they are, this has got to be one of LaFleur's like best games, both game planning wise, play calling wise, leadership wise, like ever. This, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to expect them to go in and get the W, but uh, obviously everything has to, coalesce. Things have to go their way, a
Yep.
couple of different places, but yeah, what can the approach be? I mean, I can understand a couple of different directions, right? Like, all right, we're going to button it up and play 3 yards in a cloud of dust and keep the ball away from Detroit, but I don't think that's in Matt's nature. I
No,
think they come out like five wide, spread it out, and
that's what I was
try
gonna
to
say.
toss it around. I mean, I really expect that, and I think that's a disaster waiting to happen, but that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think they've got to do something to get the ball out of Jordan's hands quickly, because we saw in the last game against Detroit where he tried to do a little bit too much, go through his progressions a little bit too much, and it was an absolute disaster. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I am interested. I know they brought James Robinson back to the practice squad. It's still like Patrick Taylor signing him off the Patriots practice squad, just because the job description for running back two in this game is going to be pass pro
Pass
and just
pro,
maybe
yeah.
catching some stuff out of the backfield. Dylan can clearly do some of that stuff, but that's putting everything on his plate in this game. I'm not sure how much you want James Robinson or Ellis Merriweather being that guy where they have to pick up blitz against a Lions pass rush. So that still screams to me as something that maybe they should consider. I'm not sure that it's going to matter all that
I
much, but
just don't. I mean, if they, I said this on Twitter. It's like they had the shot, right? They could have. after they brought him up 3 times from the practice squad and they decided to, go on their merry way instead. He signs with the Patriots and is on their practice squad. I just don't see the Packers making that call and Patrick Taylor being like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll come back." Because look, he has a choice.
Yeah,
He has
that's
to
true.
sign as a free agent. It just feels like they cast him off, and now he's on his way doing other things. Maybe they make that call. And to your
Yeah.
point, I think it makes a world of sense. I just don't know if Taylor would be amiable to it.
Yeah, money talks sometimes. A little bit of an increase going to the 53,
That's a
but yeah,
fair
you could
point.
be right too. But yeah, either way, I do think they have to maybe just get the ball out of Jordan's hands quickly. Probably not going to be able to run the ball this week either. And again, if they try to do too much in the passing game, that's not going to go well. You're going to need turnovers. You're going to need some sleight of hand, and you're going to need Jordan to probably play even a better game than he played this past week if you want a puncher's chance in Detroit.
And the thing is, too, it's funny we're talking about Rasheed Walker. I think he played well in this
Yep.
game, played well in Pittsburgh. This is a whole new hornet's nest he's stepping into. And I know, like, that first start he got in Atlanta is like a million years ago in football terms, I guess, given how many reps he's now had. But man, it's one thing to, go into Pittsburgh, which is certainly an environment, right?
Yep.
I think Detroit, the way they're playing now, the way that crowd is going to be, I mean, it was nuts when they sucked. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
especially for Thanksgiving, that's been in the past, that's been their Super Bowl, right? Now, it's legit a showcase game for Detroit and their fans to say, look how good we are. We're beating up on the Packers, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's going to be insane in that dome. And that's a whole nother world for Rasheed Walker to be looking in at the snap and then get his head whipped around for whatever's coming at him pass rush wise. I don't know, man. This is going to be a tough one.
The good news is the Bears really put them through it this past week of all teams, where like they had to really
Right.
actually earn that win through the end and really kind
Yeah.
of expend a lot of energy in that game to kind of come away with a win. Sometimes, especially on a short week, that can matter sometimes. Whether it will or not will remain to be seen. On the flip side, I think Chicago got like 3 turnovers in that game, and Detroit still came out with the win.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Detroit's going to button that up this week and be like, well, that can't ever happen again.
Right.
And they're going to make sure they're taking extra care of the ball and probably learn some of those mistakes. So it's a bit of a catch-22. I think there's some positives, some negatives, but at least maybe Green Bay can pick up on a couple of things that Chicago did well and maybe repeat those.
We'll see. I mean, I'm trying not to let the Packers ruin my Thanksgiving, but I don't feel good about it. But we'll be back regardless, win or lose, next week, next Monday. We'll be back chatting Packers. Andy, make sure you're checking out Andy Herman's stuff everywhere, especially Pack a Day Podcast. Andy, thank you so much for the time, man.
Appreciate it. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend.